Ryan had been on many missions, but this one felt different. As his drop pod hit the ground and hissed open, he stepped out into red dust and broken sky. A war was raging on the alien planet Jorak, and he was here to join the front line, but something else waited for him, something he didn't expect. He looked around the camp, full of strange sounds and even stranger faces. Then he saw her, a tall, armored alien standing still like a statue near the command tent. Her body was covered in black and purple armor, her helmet shaped like the head of a beast. Her name was Vexia, and she was not just any alien. She was a feared warrior from the Skarn Empire. She had fought in over 200 battles, and many called her the Blade of the Void. Ryan's heart beat a little faster. Was this his new partner? The commander barked out orders. Ryan, you're with her, Unit Bravo 0, recon mission starting now. Ryan raised his hand slowly. Her. The commander just nodded. Try not to get killed. Ryan walked over to Vexia, unsure what to say. She stood taller than him, almost twice his size. Her armor made small clicking sounds when she moved. Her glowing eyes behind the visor looked down at him, silent, unblinking. He smiled nervously. Nice to meet you. She didn't answer. They left the camp and moved through the canyons, silent most of the way. Ryan tried to break the silence. So, do you talk, or are you more of the strong and silent type? Nothing. Hours passed, and still she said nothing. She walked ahead, scanning the rocks, always alert. Ryan started to get annoyed. She could at least say hi, he whispered to himself. Later, as the sun set behind the red cliffs, they stopped to rest. Ryan sat down and took off his helmet, wiping sweat from his face. Vexia stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the shadows. Then, without thinking, Ryan said, You know, you've got a nice butt. There was silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. Vexia turned her head slowly. Her eyes narrowed, glowing just a little brighter. Her armor hissed as she stepped toward him. Ryan opened his mouth. Wait, I didn't mean. Whack. Her armored hand moved faster than a bullet. Ryan flew backward and landed hard on the ground, dust exploding around him. He groaned. Okay, maybe I deserve that. But then he looked up, and something shocked him. Vexia's cheeks, just under the helmet's edge, were glowing, not red, but soft purple. She was blushing. Ryan blinked, confused. Did she feel something? Or was she just angry? She didn't say anything, just turned away and walked toward the rocks. But she didn't leave him behind. That night, they camped under the stars. Ryan couldn't stop thinking about what happened. She could have broken his neck, but she didn't. She could have ignored him completely, but she reacted. That blush meant something. The next morning, the mission changed. The commander called them, his voice crackling through the comms. Forget the recon, new orders. You two are being assigned a secret objective, just the two of you. Ryan frowned. Why us? The commander just said, because no one else has a chance of surviving. The connection ended. Vexia finally spoke her first words since they met. Follow, she said, her voice deep and sharp, like metal scraping on stone. Ryan followed, still rubbing his cheek as they moved deeper into unknown territory. He looked at her again. There was something strange about her, something he didn't understand yet, something powerful, and maybe something human too. The mission was no longer just about war. It was about trust, secrets, and something neither of them was ready to face. Not yet, but the spark had been lit, and Ryan could feel it growing. He didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear, this alien warrior wasn't just fearsome. She was dangerous in a way no weapon could match, and somehow, he had just stepped into a story he would never forget. Asterisk, the wind howled like a dying beast, carrying ice that cut through armor like knives. Ryan pulled his jacket tighter, but it didn't help. His teeth chattered as he followed Vexia through the storm. They had been walking for hours ever since. Their transport ship was shot down. Smoke still rose from the wreck behind them, but they had no time to rest. Vexia moved without fear, her steps steady, her blade drawn. She didn't look back even once. Ryan's legs hurt. His fingers were numb. He didn't know how she could keep going like this. He tried speaking, just to distract himself from the cold. So, no big deal, right? Just stranded on a frozen planet, hunted by who knows what. No reply. Just the sound of wind and crunching snow. Finally, she stopped in front of a large crack in the mountain. Without a word, she stepped inside, and Ryan followed. The cave was dark, but at least it was quiet and warmer than the outside. Veksha activated a small light on her wrist and looked around. The walls shimmered with ice and crystals. Ryan dropped to the ground, exhausted. "Thanks for not letting me freeze to death," he said. Still no reply. He looked up and saw her removing pieces of her armor. It was the first time he saw her without all of it. Underneath, her skin was a soft gray blue, smooth but scarred. Her muscles were tight like steel cables, and her arms had strange markings, burned symbols that looked old, maybe sacred. She sat across from him and began sharpening her blade with a silent focus. Ryan watched her. "Hey, I didn't mean to offend you yesterday," he said. She paused for half a second, but then kept sharpening. "It was just a stupid joke." He added, still no answer. Hours passed and the wind outside grew louder. Ryan's stomach growled, but they had no food. He shivered again and curled into himself. Then something soft and warm touched his back. He turned. Veksha had taken part of her armor padding and placed it behind him. "You'll freeze if you don't sleep," she said, her voice quiet and strange in the cave. It was the second thing she'd said to him since they met. He nodded, surprised. "Thanks." They both sat in silence, the cold wrapping around them like a shadow. After a while, Veksha finally spoke again. "This planet is cursed," she said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Long ago, my kind used this place for punishment," she said. "We left traitors here to die." He looked around the dark cave, suddenly uneasy. "Anyone ever survive?" "One," she said, "but she came back." "Different," Ryan swallowed. "Hard. You ever meet her?" Veksha looked at him for a long moment. No, the air between them was heavy, but also full of something else: curiosity, confusion, maybe even trust. Ryan leaned back and stared at the icy ceiling. "What? Are those marks on your arms?" he asked. Veksha looked down at the scars, then away. "Punishment," she said. "For what?" "For loving the wrong person." Ryan didn't know what to say. She stood and walked to the edge of the cave, watching the night outside. After a while she spoke again. "Why did you say what you said yesterday?" Ryan blinked, caught off guard. "You mean about your butt?" She nodded, not looking at him. He scratched his head, nervous. "I don't know. Maybe I was scared. Or trying to break the ice, or maybe I just thought it was true." There was silence. Then Veksha turned around, and for the first time removed her helmet completely. Her face was fierce, sharp, beautiful in a way that made Ryan forget the cold. Her eyes glowed faintly, but softer than before. She looked at him, studying his face. "You're strange," she said. Ryan smiled. "Yeah, people tell me that a lot." Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the mountains. Both of them stood quickly, weapons ready. Veksha narrowed her eyes. "They found us." "Who?" Ryan asked. "Hunters," she said. "But not for you. This time they came for me." Ryan's blood turned cold. Not from the temperature, but from fear. "Why?" Veksha stepped forward, pulling him deeper into the cave. "Because I broke a law that cannot be forgiven," she whispered. "And now they will never stop." The shadows outside moved, and glowing red eyes appeared in the distance. Ryan looked at Veksha, unsure of everything, except that he didn't want to face whatever was out there without her. And deep inside, he knew this was no longer just a mission. This was a beginning. The cave shook from the thunder of footsteps above. The hunters were close now, too close. Ryan held his weapon tightly, but his hands trembled. He wasn't a coward. But whatever those things were, they weren't normal soldiers. Veksha didn't move. She stood tall, her blade resting across her shoulder. Her breath calm, then, without warning, she placed a hand on Ryan's chest and pushed him behind a wall of ice. He almost slipped on the frozen floor. "What are you?" "Stay there," she said sharply. "If they see you, they'll kill you first." Ryan crouched behind the wall, heart pounding. He peeked through a crack and watched as 5 hunters stepped into the cave. They were tall like her, covered in thick black armor. No words, just silent, deadly movement. The one in front stepped forward and threw something on the ground. Small glowing cube, it hummed. Vexia didn't even look down. "You shouldn't have come," she said. The hunter finally spoke, voice like a growl. "You broke the law." Vexia didn't blink. "I would break it again." The hunters attacked, blades flashing. Vexia met them head on, her movements fast, almost too fast to follow. The fight didn't last long. In less than a minute, 4 of the hunters were dead, their armor split open. The last one backed away, wounded. "You protect the human," he said. Vexia's voice turned cold. "I protect him, because I chose to." The hunter's eyes narrowed. "Then you are lost." He dropped a smoke bomb and vanished into the snow. Ryan stepped out from behind the ice, coughing. "Remind me not to make you angry," he said, trying to smile, but Vexia wasn't smiling. She was staring at the glowing cube the hunter left behind. Ryan walked closer. "What is that?" "A message," she whispered. She knelt and touched it. The cube lit up and projected an image of Vexia standing in front of a group of her own people. Chains on her arms, fire behind her. Then the message spoke in a deep voice. "Vexia of Glamora, you have touched the human male, spoken to him, protected him. Your blood is now unclean. Your name erased, your return forbidden." The cube fell silent, then cracked apart. Ryan looked at her, unsure what to say. "You touched Emmy?" Vexia slowly looked at him, her face pale. "In my culture, touching a human means you've chosen them." Ryan blinked. "Chosen how?" "As your equal, your partner." The words hit him like a falling ship. "Wait, what?" That's a lot. I didn't mean to," she said, her voice softer now. "I was trying to keep you alive, but the law doesn't care." "Why?" Ryan sat down, head spinning. "So now they're going to hunt us forever because you pushed me behind an ice wall?" "Yes," he laughed bitterly. "That's just great." She didn't respond, just sat down beside him, quiet and still. The fire between them was small, flickering, but the silence felt heavier than before. After a while, Ryan asked, "Have you ever done that before? Chosen someone?" Vexia shook her head. "Never." "Why me then?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the small scar on his cheek, then down at her own hands. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe because you're not afraid of me." Ryan looked into her glowing eyes. "I was at first. And now?" "I'm still kind of afraid," he said, smiling a little. "But I'm also curious." She smiled for the first time, barely, but it was real. Outside, the storm had passed, but inside the cave, something had changed. Not just between them, but inside her too. She reached for his arm to check a cut he didn't notice. Her fingers were warm against his skin, gentle. He didn't pull away. "I thought your kind doesn't touch humans," he whispered. "They don't," she said. "But I'm not like them anymore." The snow outside had stopped falling, but something darker moved in its place. Ryan woke up in the cave with a strange feeling in his chest, like the air was too still, like the silence was hiding something. He looked around and found the fire cold. Vexia was gone. Panic rose in his throat as he grabbed his gear and stepped into the light. Footprints in the snow led away from the cave. Deep and fast, he followed them, heart pounding. Each step felt heavier, as if the cold itself didn't want him to catch. Up, he finally found her standing at the edge of a frozen cliff. She was staring into the distance, her face calm but distant. She didn't turn around when he called her name. Instead, she held something small in her hand, a pendant, round and made of dark metal. It glowed softly in the snowlight. Ryan stepped closer and looked at it. "What's that?" he asked. Veksha's fingers closed around it quickly. "Nothing," she said. "That didn't look like nothing," he replied. She turned to him, her voice quieter than usual. "It belonged to my sister." Ryan blinked. "You never told me you had a sister." "I don't anymore," she said. Her eyes didn't look angry or sad, they looked hollow, like something inside her had already died. "I thought it was destroyed long ago," she whispered. "But now it's here." Ryan looked around at the snow, confused. "Wait, if you lost it long ago, how is it here now?" Veksha didn't answer, but her grip on the pendant tightened. "She was taken," she said, "by the same ones who hunt me now." Ryan stepped back, stunned. "So the people chasing us, they're the same ones who hurt your family?" Veksha nodded once. "I left them," she said, "and they never forgave me." "Why did you leave?" She looked straight at him. "Because I believed a warrior should have a choice." Ryan wanted to ask more, but a sudden sound cut through the air, a soft, deep hum, almost like singing. Veksha's body tensed immediately. She pulled her blade from her back and pointed to the trees. "They're close," she said. Ryan followed her as they ran through the forest. Branches snapped under their feet, and every shadow looked alive. Soon they reached a clearing, and that's when Ryan saw them. Not just hunters, but soldiers. 10 of them, armored and glowing with strange energy. They didn't attack right away. One of them stepped forward, holding up the same pendant Veksha had just hidden. "This is the price of your shame," the soldier said. Veksha stepped between him and Ryan. "I already paid," she growled. "Not enough," he replied, and threw the pendant into the snow. Then the fight began. Veksha moved like a storm. Blades spinning, eyes blazing, Ryan fired his weapon, trying to cover her side. But there were too many, too fast. He saw one of the soldiers move behind her. Blade raised, without thinking, he threw himself forward. He tackled the enemy before the blade could strike, both of them rolling into the snow. When the dust settled, Veksha stood over the fallen enemies. Breathing hard, Ryan lay in the snow, a cut on his arm and blood on his shirt. She knelt beside him, pressing her hand against the wound. "You idiot," she said softly. "You're welcome," he replied with a weak smile. As she helped him up, he noticed something on one of the fallen soldiers. It was another pendant, just like the first, but this one had a crack down the center. Veksha's eyes widened when she saw it. This was mine," she said, her voice shaking. "Then why was he wearing it?" Ryan asked. Veksha stood still, frozen not by the cold, but by memory. "I gave it to someone I trusted," she whispered, "and he gave it to them." Ryan didn't speak. He just stood close to her, waiting. She looked at him and said, "The one who betrayed me. He was supposed to be my bondmate." Ryan felt the air leave his lungs. "You loved him?" "Yes," she said, "and he sold me for power." The snow fell again, soft and slow like ashes. And in that moment, Ryan saw it clearly. This wasn't just a war. It was a trail of broken trust. And Veksha was still walking through the ruins. She turned to him and said, "I won't let it happen again." He nodded. "Then let's finish this together." She looked at him for a long time, her eyes unreadable. Then she handed him a new blade, hers. "You fight beside me now," she said. "And if we fall as one." Ryan took the blade without a word, because something had already begun between them, and neither betrayal nor war, nor the coldest night could break it now. The fire crackled inside the cave, low and tired. Ryan sat with his back against the cold wall, his fingers tracing the edge of the alien blade Veksha had given him. She hadn't spoken in hours. After the battle, she had returned to the cave and stayed silent, just sharpening her weapons and staring into the flames. Outside, the snow whispered against the stone, but inside, something else was falling apart, something deeper, something inside her. Ryan could feel it in the air, like the weight of a storm you couldn't see yet. He wanted to ask questions, but the words felt too sharp for the moment. Then, without warning, Veksha stood and walked to the far side of the cave. She knelt beside her old armor and opened a hidden compartment. From it, she pulled out a small metal disc. Round and glowing blue, she placed it on the ground, pressed a symbol, and stepped back. A soft light rose from the disc, forming a shaky hologram. A younger version of Vexia appeared, laughing with someone. Her smile was real, her eyes soft. There was no weapon in her hands, just flowers bright and strange. The person beside her was another warrior, tall and proud. Ryan watched quietly as the past played out like a dream. When it ended, Vexia spoke without looking at him. "I wasn't always like this," she said. Ryan didn't move. "I used to believe in beauty," she whispered. "In peace, in promises." He waited, knowing this wasn't the time to interrupt. "He told me he loved me," she continued, her voice empty. "He said I made him stronger, braver." She touched the disc again, and a different image appeared. The same warrior, now in a council room, standing over her. She was on her knees, chained. He held a document in his hand. He didn't look at her, not even once. The hologram flickered and faded. Vexia stood and turned away, her shoulders tense. "I begged him," she said. "I begged him to tell the truth, to say I was loyal." Ryan stepped closer, slowly. "Instead, he gave them lies," she said. "He said I was unfit to serve, that I was corrupted by humans." She touched the burn marks on her arms. They called it cleansing. Ryan felt something twist inside him. A quiet fury. She wasn't just strong, she was broken and rebuilt in silence. "How did you survive it?" he asked. "I didn't," she replied. "Not the part that mattered." She looked at him, her eyes shining from the firelight. "When I met you, I hated your voice, your jokes, your smile." Ryan smiled slightly. "That explains a lot. But I hated you because you reminded me what I lost." She said, laughter, trust, stupid warmth. He didn't know what to say to that. So he said nothing, just sat beside her. The fire popped, and the wind outside grew louder. "I don't understand why I didn't let you die," she said. "I do," Ryan said softly. She looked at him, unsure. "Because you're still in there," he said. "That part you lost, it's still alive, and it's screaming to be heard." She turned her head away, hiding her face. "I don't deserve to feel anything." "Too bad," he said, "because I already do." They sat in silence for a long while. Then, slowly, she reached into her armor and pulled out something small, a charm. Half cracked, shaped like a wing, she placed it in his hand. "My sister gave me this," she said, "to protect me from nightmares." Ryan looked at it, then at her. "Can I keep it?" She nodded once. "It's yours now." He held it close, feeling its strange warmth. Then he asked the question he'd been afraid to ask. "Do you still think about him? The one who betrayed you?" "Yes," she said without emotion. "But I think about you more." The words hit him hard, not because they were sweet, but because they were real. They came from someone who had nothing left to give, yet gave anyway. He reached out and touched her hand gently. She didn't pull away. Not this time outside. The snow kept falling. But inside the cave, something had shifted. Not peace, not yet. But maybe the start of healing. She wasn't always like this, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to stay that way forever. Ryan couldn't sleep that night. Not because of the cold. Not because of the pain in his arm. But because of the way Vexia stared at the fire, like she was seeing ghosts in the flames. She hadn't spoken much since the fight. She sat cross-legged, armor pieces scattered around her like broken bones. Her face didn't show fear, but it showed something else, something that looked older than the war itself. A silence that felt like it had lasted for years. Ryan shifted closer, careful not to make noise. He didn't want to spook her, but he also didn't want to leave her alone in that silence. "You okay?" he asked gently. No answer came. She picked up a shard of her broken shoulder plate, ran her finger across the edge. Then she said something so quietly he almost didn't hear it. "I used to sing." Ryan blinked, confused. "What?" She didn't look at him. "When I was young," she said. "Before the blade, before the battles. I sang songs about stars, about rivers, about flying beasts. I sang to my sister when she was afraid of the dark." Ryan had never heard her voice this soft before. He stayed quiet, letting her talk. She used to think I was magic, Veksha continued. She said my voice could push away nightmares. But then came the first war. They took me from home, put a blade in my hand and said, "Sin for the dead now." Ryan watched her trace the cracks in the armor shard. She looked smaller without her rage. More human than alien. I forgot the words. She said, and one day, I forgot my sister's face. She finally turned toward him. "You asked me once why I fight," she said. "I don't fight to win anymore. I fight to remember." Ryan wanted to say something, anything. But his throat was tight. The way she spoke, it wasn't anger anymore. It was grief buried so deep even the stars couldn't find it. Veksha stood and walked to the cave wall. She pressed her palm against the stone, and a soft blue light lit up in a circle. A hidden panel opened, revealing a small metal cube. She pulled it out, wiped the dust off, and sat back down. She tapped. The top and a projection flickered to life. It was her, much younger, no scars, no armor. No weapons. She was laughing, truly laughing, dancing in some alien field with silver grass, holding a tiny girl's hand. They spun in circles until they fell. Breathless and happy, "That's her," Veksha said, voice cracking. "My sister. She was 6 when I left. She gave me this cube and said, 'When you're sad, look at this and remember.'" I never looked. Ryan leaned closer, the image making his heart heavy. "What happened to her?" "I don't know," Veksha said. "They told me the city burned. No names, no bodies. They never told me if she made it out." The projection faded, leaving only silence again. Veksha looked at her hands. "Do you know what it's like to be feared by your own kind? To walk through crowds and hear silence louder than screaming? To wonder if anyone who knew you still remembers your name?" Ryan shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "But I know what it's like to feel alone in a room full of people." She looked at him like she was seeing something she hadn't noticed before. A crack in the mask he wore too. Maybe they weren't so different after all. "I slapped you," she said suddenly. Ryan blinked. "Yeah, you did. I slapped you because I didn't know what else to do. You made me feel something I forgot existed." She looked away quickly. "And I hated that," Ryan gave a small smile. "It still hurts, by the way." Her lips twitched just barely. "That was mercy," she said. "I once broke a warrior's ribs for less." They sat together in the fading warmth. Outside, the stars began to show through cracks in the sky. Ryan reached into his jacket and pulled out a chocolate bar, his last one. He handed it to her without a word. Veksha took it slowly, turned it over in her hands. "Sweet," she whispered. She took a small bite and closed her eyes. A quiet hum escaped her lips, almost like a note from a forgotten song. "You weren't always like this," Ryan said. "And you don't have to stay like this either." For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she looked at him and said, "I want to believe you." They stood at the edge of the ruined city. Ash drifted through the air like black snow. The sky above was orange with fire and smoke, and the ground below still trembled from distant blasts. Ryan looked at the broken towers and the collapsed walls. "This is where you were born?" he asked. Veksha nodded slowly, her face unreadable. Her city was gone, and yet something had drawn her back. She had returned not for revenge, but for something deeper. Proof, perhaps, that her past still had meaning, or to show Ryan that even ashes could speak. They walked carefully through the wreckage. Ryan followed close, stepping over metal beams and twisted wires. Then she suddenly stopped. He looked ahead and saw why 3 figures in black armor stood in the street, waiting. They weren't scouts, and they weren't hunters. These were the highest caste council guards, loyal only to the code. One of them stepped forward and spoke in the old tongue. Veksha answered in the same voice, cold and sharp. Ryan didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. He could feel the tension building like thunder behind clouds. The guard pointed at Ryan. He was the reason they came. Not because he was dangerous, but because she had chosen him. They called her name again, this time louder. She didn't reply. Instead, she reached for his hand. Slowly, in full view of the guards, her fingers locked with his, firm and unshaking. It was a message, not to them, but to the world. The guard said something else, and this time Ryan understood the tone. It was a threat: surrender or suffer. Vexia didn't flinch. She stepped forward, raised her blade, and said one word in her language: no. The battle was fast and brutal. Vexia moved like fire through shadows. Ryan fought at her side, every move matching hers, like they had trained together for years. They weren't perfect, but they trusted each other, and sometimes trust was stronger than skill. When it was over, the guards lay broken on the stone, blood mixed with the dust. But Ryan didn't feel like they'd won. Something deeper had cracked. Above them, a ship descended slowly, silent and black like a predator. A symbol shone from its side, the mark of the High Queen. Ryan stepped back, unsure. What now? He asked. Vexia didn't answer. The ship opened, and a single figure stepped out, a woman taller than Vexia, wearing robes like moving smoke. Her face was hidden behind a golden mask, but her voice echoed like thunder. You were warned, she said. You broke the bond code. Vexia stepped forward, calm and fearless. I made a new bond, she replied. With a human? The Queen asked. With someone who didn't lie to me. The Queen raised her hand, and lightning cracked from the sky. But before the strike landed, Ryan pulled Vexia down and rolled with her into cover. The ground exploded beside them, throwing dust into the air. Vexia stood, her armor cracked, and shouted, If love is a crime, then let the stars judge me. The Queen stepped back, as if the words had power, and maybe they did, in that moment. Ryan understood something no translator could explain. Her world was not cruel by nature, it was simply afraid of change, afraid of softness, afraid of choosing heart over duty. Vexia threw down her broken blade. She didn't need it anymore. She turned to Ryan, took his hand again, and said, This is how I fight now. The Queen gave one last look, then turned away. The ship rose, slowly, and disappeared into the burning sky. There was no cheering, no music, no reward. But there was freedom. Ryan looked at her hand in his and smiled. So, he said quietly, your slap was just the beginning. She blinked, then gave the smallest laugh he'd ever heard from her. A warning, she said. You're lucky I liked you. They walked away from the city ruins together. No longer warrior and soldier, not traitor and exile. Just two beings who found each other in the fire. And this time, neither of them let go.